Every year, pandemic years aside, starting right around Thanksgiving and then running almost to the end of December, children all across the country and all around the world would jam into malls and shopping stores and other venues, all for the chance to sit on the lap of their hero, Santa Claus. They'll wait in lines, sometimes long lines, anxious for the opportunity to tell Santa what it is they want for Christmas and to convince him that they've been nice rather than naughty. They'll take pictures with Santa Claus, they'll hug him, and then they're going to jump off of his lap and they're going to head home and wait for that moment when Santa Claus delivers all of their gifts. Santa Claus is coming to town. And on the night of December the 24th, children all across the world and adults all around the world will fall asleep dreaming of that jolly old man in his reindeer-driven sleigh jumping up and down chimneys, leaving presents underneath the tree and in stockings hung by the chimney with care. There are going to be some kids who are going to leave milk and cookies out for Santa. There are going to be some who could try to stay awake at night to catch a glimpse of Santa. But here's the thing. Nobody's going to see Santa December the 24th. But on December the 25th, when they wake up and see all those gifts, they're going to know that Santa was at their house the night before. So Santa Claus is coming to town, and most of us can hardly wait. Now, if you've been attending this church for any amount of time, you know I love Santa. I'm a huge Santa fan. And there are some people who think that's a little strange for a pastor to be a Santa fan because there are some people who believe that Santa takes focus away from Jesus. But I'm not one of those guys. I love Santa's generosity. I love the way that Santa brings joy to children and adults alike. And I think that Santa actually enhances the celebration of Christmas because Santa's story is rooted in the story of Jesus, and Santa's story points us to Jesus. So the story of Santa actually begins about 300 years after the birth of Jesus in Peoria, Turkey. A little boy was born by the name of Nicholas. He was born to a mom and a dad who loved Jesus, and they knew that Jesus loved them. And so they taught Nicholas all about Jesus. They taught Nicholas that Jesus loved him and Nicholas loved Jesus. Unfortunately, when he was 9 years old, his parents died, leaving him orphaned. But they did leave him with a sizable inheritance. And so at that young age of 9, he made a really radical decision. He decided rather than being bitter about losing his parents, that he would put his grief into action by giving away some of the money that his parents had given to him. And so he began to focus on those who were less fortunate than he was, who were poor, and particularly children. And he would sneak out at night because he didn't want anyone to know that he was the gift giver, and under the cover of darkness, sometimes wearing a disguise, he would go around his village and give gifts to people. One of the stories told about Nicholas, and we're not sure if it's true or not, but it certainly captures the essence of Nicholas. It's a story about a family, lived in his community, 3 daughters, all engaged, and no money to get married. And so one night, Nicholas snuck out under the cover of darkness. He went over to the house and he threw a bag of money into an open window of that house. He didn't know at the time that the money had landed in a stocking hanging out to dry. So when the oldest daughter, went to put that stocking on, she found this bag of money in her stocking. They had no idea where it came from, but it was just enough for her to get married. So a few months later, Nicholas did the same thing for daughter number 2. And a few months after that, he snuck out one more time, but this time he was caught in the act of giving because Dad was waiting for him. He wanted to know who the benefactor was. So Nicholas convinced him not to tell anyone. The dad kept the secret for years, but eventually the community learned that Nicholas was the gift giver. And one of the other things that they appreciated about Nicholas, not only about his generosity, but he had a deep faith. And he had leadership skills, and so Nicholas became the pastor of that community, eventually became a bishop, which means that he was a pastor over pastors. During his lifetime, there was a very important council meeting that took place from Christian leaders at that time to make some definitive decisions, so to speak, about what it is we really believe as Christian people. And he played a key role in that. and eventually because of his faith, he was put in prison. After he died, people began to honor Nicholas by calling him Saint Nicholas, and they started to give gifts to their children to honor him. So the tradition grew of giving gifts on St. Nicholas Day, and so we're going to fast forward now, 1613. The Dutch have come over to the New World, and they have started a town called New Amsterdam. And the Dutch have a day called St. Nicholas Feast Day on December the 6th. And on December the 6th, they would give gifts to children in honor of St. Nicholas, but they called St. Nicholas Santa Claus, and still do to this day. In 1664, the English defeated the Dutch. They changed the name New Amsterdam to New York. The English gave gifts to their children on December the 25th, but they really liked that Dutch celebration of St. Nicholas Feast Day, so they moved all of it to December the 25th, and they gave a twist to the name Santa Claus and began to call him Santa Claus. In 1822, Clement Moore wrote a poem, "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," subtitled "A Visit from St. Nick." And it's in that poem that we begin to get a picture of what Santa looks like. This jolly old man, little pipe, a glint in his eye. He rides around in a sleigh with reindeer, and he jumps up and down chimneys. In the 1860s, political cartoonist Thomas Nast actually drew pictures of Santa Claus that further gave us a picture of what he looks like. And he's the one who told us that Santa Claus lives up in the North Pole. But the picture that we have of Santa Claus to this day comes to you courtesy of our good friends at Coca-Cola. In 1931, they wanted to run an ad campaign featuring Coca-Cola with Santa Claus. They hired Hayden Sundblom, an artist, and this is the picture he came up with, and this now has become sort of the definitive picture of Santa Claus, at least in the United States of America, but in most of the world. And so now Santa Claus, St. Nicholas, is admired by children all around the world, and he's celebrated in songs, TV shows, movies, and on the internet, and in shopping malls everywhere. And so the story of Santa Claus, as we know him today, is rooted in the story of Jesus. It begins with a boy named Nicholas who loved Jesus, and out of his love for Jesus, gave gifts to people. But now here we are in 2021, and Santa, as we know him today, and Jesus are intimately tied together to the Christmas season. And because of that, it's sometimes easy for us to begin to enmesh the two of them. And here's what I mean by that. Santa and Jesus are pretty similar in some ways. They both love us. They both give us gifts. They both know when we're naughty or nice. They both seem to be everywhere at the same time. And so they can be very much the same. And so sometimes what happens for people is they begin to impose their beliefs about Santa onto Jesus, so that we see Jesus in some ways the way we see Santa. If we're good, Jesus will bless us. And if we're not good, Jesus won't bless us. So while it is true that there are some things about Santa and Jesus that are similar, it's the differences that matter. So for example, they both give us gifts, but the gifts that Santa gives are temporary. They don't last. That tie goes out of style. The clothes that you got last year maybe wear out, don't fit anymore. The toys break. And so Santa has to come every year because his toys simply don't last. They're temporary. Jesus, on the other hand, gives gifts that are eternal. And these are the gifts that we really need to live the human experience. The gifts that give life substance, hope, joy, peace, forgiveness, life. These are the gifts that last. These are the gifts that never cease to surprise us. These are the gifts that never cease to amaze us, and they're available to us all the time, 24/7. They never wear out. Secondly, they both love us, but Santa's love tends to be conditional. So there's a story about a little boy. He had a huge list for Santa Claus, finally got to sit on Santa's lap and began to read off his list. He wanted a bicycle. He wanted a Kyler Murray jersey. He wanted one of these new video game consoles, and the list went on and on and on. And Santa took the list. He said, that is really impressive. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this list. I'm going to go to the North Pole. I'm going to check you out to see if you've been naughty or nice. And the little boy grabbed the list back and said, never mind, I'll settle for the bicycle. You better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good. So be good, for goodness sake. Because if you're good, Santa will give you gifts. If you're not so good, you may get a lump of coal. Now that's one of the sad additions, right, to the Santa story. Because that's not what Nicholas was like. But that's sort of the Santa we sing about today. His love tends to be conditional. The love that Jesus has for you, unconditional. No strings attached. There's nothing you can do to make Jesus love you more. There's nothing you can do to make Jesus love you less. He simply loves you. The Bible says that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. He loves us just as we are. He loves you just as you are, and nothing will ever change that. And then finally, while they're both friends, Santa's not a friend you can count on. He comes for a few weeks once a year, and then he's gone. And so in June, July, August, if you're hurting or you're going through a tough time or you need someone to talk to, or even if you're celebrating, Santa's nowhere to be found. But Jesus is a friend who will never leave you nor forsake you. No matter where you are, no matter what you're going through, Jesus is there. Jesus is present. And no matter how deep the trouble, no matter how deep the sorrow, His grace is there, and it's deeper even than that. So Santa Claus is coming to town in just a few days, and that's great news. But the even better news is that Jesus is here right now, and He will never leave you nor forsake you. The story of Santa is rooted in the story of Jesus. The story of Santa enhances the celebration of Christmas, but Christmas happens because of Jesus. Santa exists because of Jesus. And today, right now, in this moment, as is true every day of the week, Jesus is here to lavish on you all the gifts of heaven. And right now, in this moment, we have a chance to experience those gifts tangibly as Jesus comes to us.